Billionaire slapped a poor maid, unleashing a nightmare he never saw coming. Her quiet husband operates by a different code, one where revenge is a cold, calculated art. An empire will tremble, a life will be dismantled. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The crystal glass shattered on the marble floor. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Red wine, dark as blood, spread across the perfect white tile and, more importantly, across the sleeve of Daniel Sterling's $5,000 suit. Daniel didn't even look at the spill. His eyes, cold and blue as a winter lake, locked onto the woman holding the now empty tray. She was in a simple black maid's uniform, her brown hair tied back, her face pale. "You stupid, clumsy woman," Daniel hissed, his voice low but cutting through the gentle jazz music. "I'm so sorry, sir," the woman stammered, her accent soft, Eastern European. "It was an accident, please let me." "You think sorry cleans this?" Daniel snapped. He gestured to his sleeve. "This is Zugna, custom worth more than you make in a year." The party guests, the city's elite, had gone quiet, watching. His business partner, Paul, shifted uncomfortably nearby. Daniel felt their eyes. He had to show control. He had to show strength. He was Daniel Sterling, the self-made tech king. He was not to be disrespected, not even by a stain. Before anyone could move, his hand flew out. It wasn't a hard hit, but it was sharp, loud in the quiet room. A slap. Her head jerked to the side. A second, deeper silence followed. Tears sprang to the woman's eyes, but she didn't make a sound. She just pressed a hand to her reddening cheek and looked at the floor. "Get out of my sight," Daniel said, turning away as if she were nothing. "Someone call the agency. She's fired." The maid, her name was Alana, gave one last, quick look around the room. Her eyes didn't search for pity. They seemed to be memorizing his face. Then she disappeared through the servants' door. The party's noise slowly returned, awkward and forced. Paul came over. Daniel, was that necessary? In front of everyone. "She needs to learn," Daniel said, shrugging, sipping a fresh glass of champagne someone handed him. "You let one thing slide, and the whole world thinks it can walk all over you." He didn't see the man in the corner. A tall, broad-shouldered man with graying hair at his temples and eyes the color of stone. He had been talking with the mayor about a new arts wing for the museum. His name was Dmitry Volkov. He had seen everything. His expression didn't change. He didn't flinch. He simply finished his conversation with a polite smile, excused himself, and walked calmly to the servants' entrance. In the small, hot kitchen, Alana was taking off her apron, her hands shaking. Dmitry walked in. The other staff froze, then quickly found reasons to leave the room. He went straight to her and gently lifted her chin. He saw the red mark on her pale cheek. A muscle in his jaw ticked. It was the only sign of the storm inside him. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice a low rumble, tender. "No, just my pride," Alana whispered, a tear finally escaping. "I wanted to be normal for a night, Dmitry, just a normal woman with a normal job." "I know, Mulliga," he said, pulling her into his arms. He kissed her forehead. "But you are not normal, you are my heart," and he touched what is mine. Alana pulled back, looking worried. "Dmitry, no, it was just a slap. A stupid man with a big ego. Let it go." Dmitry smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It was a cold, dangerous smile. "I am not going to kill him, Alana. That would be too simple. That would be a mercy." He traced the mark on her cheek with his thumb. "He values his things, his money, his reputation, his control. I am going to take his things, one by one. And when he has nothing left, then he will see my face." The next morning, Daniel's world was still perfect. He woke in his penthouse, high above the city. His smart home system, Aura, greeted him with the weather and news. He went for a swim in his infinity pool. The slap was already a distant memory, a lesson taught. It started small. His coffee machine, a top-of-the-line Italian model, didn't work. It just blinked an error code. Annoying. He yelled for his actual live-in housekeeper, Lucy, to make it manually. Then, as he was getting into his self-driving car, the door didn't recognize his fingerprint. He had to use the manual key. Weird. At the office, his flagship product, the Aura Home system experienced a glitch. A few customers reported their lights flickering. His tech team said it was a minor server blip, nothing to worry about. Daniel forgot about it. He had a big deal to close, a merger that would make him one of the top 5 richest men in the city. A week later, the real games began. Daniel was in a high-stakes poker game with other investors. He had a fantastic hand, a full house. He went all in, a confident smirk on his face. His rival, a man named James, looked nervous, then called. James showed his cards. 2 pair, a worse hand. Daniel started to reach for the huge pile of chips, but then James smiled. "Wait, look again." Daniel looked. His king of hearts seemed to have a smudge. On the screen displaying the table for all to see, a pixel seemed to shift. For a second, it looked like the king was a different card. A murmur went around the table. The dealer, looking confused and sweating, leaned in. I think there's a mark on this card," the dealer stammered. "This game is under scrutiny, Mr. Sterling. I'm sorry. The hand is void." "That's ridiculous," Daniel roared. "It's a glitch on your screen. Look at the physical card." But the damage was done. In the world of high-stakes poker, perception was everything. The other players looked at him with suspicion. He was asked to leave the game. The story, whispered and twisted, spread through the financial circles. Daniel Sterling might cheat at cards. He was furious. It was just bad luck, a coincidence. Then his stocks began to move. Not a crash, something sneakier. Every time he made a big buy, the stock would mysteriously dip the next hour. Every time he sold, it would rally. It was like the market was laughing at him. His financial advisor, David, was baffled. "It's like someone has a mirror of your trades, Daniel, and is moving against you just before the market reacts. It's costing us millions in small bites." "Find out who it is," Daniel demanded. "We can't trace it. The trades are routed through shell companies, offshore banks. It's a ghost." Daniel started to feel a cold finger down his spine. This wasn't bad luck anymore. He came home one night stressed. Aura, play some relaxing music, mood lighting blue. The system responded, but the music was a slow, sad Russian lullaby. The lights turned a deep blood red. He shouted at the system. It didn't respond. Aura shut down, full shutdown. A smooth, calm, digitally altered voice came from the speakers. It was Aura's voice. "A stain must be cleaned from the inside out." Daniel froze. His blood ran cold. He grabbed a baseball bat and searched the penthouse. No one was there. He called his security. They found nothing. The system logs showed no breach. "It's just a hack," Paul said the next day, trying to calm him. "A prank by a competitor will get new cyber security." But Daniel wasn't sleeping. He was jumping at shadows. The next blow was social. He was at a charity gala for the city's museum. It was a huge event. He was supposed to present a check. As he walked to the stage, smiling, large screens around the ballroom flickered. Instead of the museum logo, a video played. It was grainy from a security camera. It showed Daniel years ago meeting with a known city planner in a back room. They were talking. Then Daniel handed him an envelope. It looked bad, very bad. The planner had later been arrested for taking bribes to rezone land. Daniel's deal had gone through perfectly. He had been cleared of any wrongdoing. The money was for a legitimate consulting fee. But the court of public opinion didn't care about cleared. They cared about what it looked like. The video played on a loop for a full 30 seconds before the tech people killed it. The room was dead silent. Hundreds of eyes stared at him. The mayor looked away. The socialites whispered behind their hands. His reputation, his hard-built image of the clean, self-made genius, was cracked. He fled the gala, humiliated. In his car, he screamed in rage. "Who is doing this? Who?" His driver, a quiet man named Mark, glanced in the rearview mirror but said nothing. That night, Daniel sat in his dark living room, drinking. The phone rang. It was David, his financial advisor. He sounded panicked. "Daniel, it's all gone. The mirror trades. They just executed a massive short against your company's stock right before the market closed. Then they released a fake press release saying you're under federal investigation. The stock is plummeting in after-hours trading. The banks are calling in your loans. They say your collateral is worthless now. Fake, prove it's fake, Daniel yelled. We are, but it's too late. The damage is done. Daniel, you're facing margin calls you can't meet. You might lose everything. By Monday morning, you could be bankrupt. The phone dropped from Daniel's hand. Bankrupt. The word echoed in the empty, silent penthouse. The aura system was dead now, completely unplugged. He was alone. And then he knew this wasn't business. This wasn't a competitor. This was personal. Someone was taking his world apart piece by piece. His comfort, his game, his reputation, his money. They were taking his things. But who? The memory flashed. The party, the spilled wine, the slap. The maid's tear-filled eyes, not looking at the floor but memorizing his face. It couldn't be a maid. No, it was impossible. He called Paul. The party, the maid I fired, find out everything about her. Now. Elena watched the news on a small tablet in her sun-filled sitting room. The headline blared. Sterling Tech in freefall. CEO's empire crumbles amid scandals. She looked up at Dmitri, who was reading a book in a plush armchair. Dmitri, this is too much. He's ruined. Dmitri put his book down. He walked over and knelt before her, taking her hands. He raised his hand to you, Elena. He thought you were nothing. He needs to understand what nothing feels like. The lesson is not over. What's left for him to lose? She asked softly. His freedom, Dmitri said calmly, and his peace. Tomorrow night at the mayor's winter ball, everyone will be there. He will be there begging for investors. That is where he will learn the name of the man whose wife he struck. Daniel Sterling was a ghost of himself. His suit was the same expensive brand, but it hung on him. He hadn't slept. His eyes were wild. He had to come to the mayor's winter ball. It was his last chance. He needed to talk to the bankers, to Paul, to anyone who could throw him a lifeline. But people avoided him like he had a disease. They turned their backs when he approached. He saw the smirks, the pitying looks. He was a joke. He stood near the bar, desperate, when he felt a presence beside him. A tall, imposing man with stone-colored eyes. It was Dmitri Volkov, the philanthropist. Daniel had seen him around. He was respected, quiet, incredibly wealthy from old European imports, and married to a beautiful, reclusive woman. Mr. Sterling, Dmitri said, his voice polite, even friendly. A difficult time. Daniel grasped at the kindness, even if it was fake. Mr. Volkov, yes, a series of terrible coincidences and malicious attacks. I understand, Dmitri said, nodding slowly. The world can be cruel to those who do not respect its delicate balance. He sipped his vodka. Tell me, do you believe in consequences, Mr. Sterling? Daniel blinked. Of course, for one's actions. Good, Dmitri smiled. A chill went down Daniel's spine. There was something in that smile. I do too. I believe consequences should be instructive. They should teach a man the true value of what he had. Daniel's mouth was dry. What do you mean? Dmitri ignored the question. He looked out at the ballroom. My wife loves these parties. She finds the people interesting. She wanted to be here tonight, especially to see you. Daniel's heart began to pound. To see me? Why? She felt your last meeting was incomplete. Dmitri turned his stone-cold eyes directly on Daniel. Do you remember her? About a month ago? At your penthouse party. She was serving drinks. You had a disagreement about a wine stain. The room seemed to tilt. The noise of the party faded into a dull roar. Daniel stared at Dmitri's face, then his eyes drifted to the man's hands. Strong hands. The hands of a man who could break him in two without effort. The maid, Daniel whispered, the blood draining from his face. Her name, Dmitri said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous whisper that only Daniel could hear, is Elena Volkov, my wife. The truth hit Daniel like a physical blow. He stumbled back a step, hitting the bar. The maid. The quiet, graceful woman at the museum gala on Dmitri's arm he'd barely noticed. It was her. He had slapped the wife of Dmitri Volkov. A man whose name, he now realized with dawning horror, was whispered in connection with things far darker than philanthropy. I didn't know, Daniel choked out. I swear to God I didn't know. That, Dmitri said, his voice like ice, is the point. You didn't see her. You saw a uniform, a thing to be scolded, you saw nothing. He leaned in closer. So I showed you what it is like to be nothing. Your home, your game, your good name, your money, all gone. You are standing here in borrowed time in a world that no longer sees you. Daniel was shaking. Please, what do you want? I'll do anything. I'll apologize to her, on my knees. Dmitri straightened up, his polite public smile returning as the mayor approached them. He clapped a heavy hand on Daniel's shoulder, looking for all the world like he was comforting a friend. The mayor smiled at them. Ah, Daniel, Dmitri. Glad to see you two connecting. Dmitri here has just pledged an astonishing sum to the city's new housing initiative for the poor. A truly generous man. Daniel could only stare, trapped in the nightmare. Dmitri squeezed his shoulder hard. The grip was painful, a promise of strength held in check. As the mayor walked away, Dmitri brought his lips close to Daniel's ear. His final words were a soft, deadly whisper. My wife sends her regards. She's cleaning your slate. He released Daniel, gave a slight, mocking nod, and melted back into the crowd, leaving Daniel Sterling standing alone, utterly and completely destroyed. He wasn't just bankrupt. He was a marked man in a world he no longer owned. The lesson was over, and the consequences were just beginning. The fish market smelled of ice, salt, and decay. Leo parked the van in an alley behind the stalls. He jerked his head at Daniel. Come on, and look mean, or at least don't look like you're gonna puke. The debtor was a man named Tony, with thick forearms and nervous eyes. His office was a tiny, heated room filled with paperwork and the strong smell of fish. Leo, please, Tony whined, seeing the bat in Daniel's hand. I got it next week, I swear. The catch was bad. Mr. Volkov doesn't like next week, Tony, Leo said, his voice flat. He picked up a ledger book and flipped through it. You're short $2,000, again. I'll have it, just a few more days. Leo sighed as if bored. He looked at Daniel. See, this is what happens. People think next week is a real thing. He nodded toward Tony. Break his display case, the one with the fancy lobsters. Daniel froze. The bat felt like it was welded to his hand. He had negotiated billion-dollar deals, not terrorized shopkeepers. Do it, Leo said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Or I'll break your knees instead, and then we'll take the money from your hospital fund. Daniel's stomach churned. He looked at Tony's pleading face, then at the large glass case where live lobsters crawled over each other. This was the test, the first step into the dark. He lifted the bat. He didn't want to. Every part of his old self screamed that this was wrong beneath him. But that old self was bankrupt and living in a studio apartment. That old self was dead. He swung. The crash was incredibly loud. Glass exploded. Water and lobsters cascaded onto the dirty floor, claws clicking. Tony yelled in protest, then covered his face with his hands. Leo nodded, satisfied. He pulled an envelope from his own pocket and counted out $2,000 in cash, placing it on Tony's desk. This is a loan from Mr. Volkov's kindness fund. It covers your debt this week. You will pay back $3,000 by next Friday. Understand? Or next time he doesn't send the new guy, he sends the cleaners. Tony just nodded, staring at the mess. Back in the van, Daniel was silent, his hands still shaking. He felt sick. Not so hard, was it? Leo said, starting the engine. You just have to stop thinking like a person. Think like a tool. A hammer doesn't worry if it's breaking a window or building a house. It just hits. That was Daniel's life now. He was a hammer. Days turned into weeks. Daniel did the jobs. He collected envelopes from scared-looking shop owners. He stood as a silent, intimidating presence during meetings. He drove cars that he knew probably had something in the trunk he didn't want to see. He learned the hierarchy. Leo was a captain. Mark was Dmitri's personal driver and head of security. There were others, men named Ivan, Stefan, Big Joe. They mostly ignored him, a fallen prince who was now a foot soldier. He was paid in cash, enough for food, rent, and nothing more. He saw Dmitri only once from a distance, entering a private club. Dmitri didn't even glance his way. The only reminder of his old life was Paul, his former partner. Paul tracked him down, finding him in a diner eating a greasy burger. "Daniel, my God, look at you." Paul looked at Daniel's cheap clothes, his tired face. "Don't, Paul," Daniel said, staring at his plate. "People are saying you work for Volkov now. Is it true?" Daniel didn't answer. He didn't have to. "Daniel, you have to get out. Go to the police. Testify." Daniel finally looked up, a hollow smile on his face. "And say what? That he ruined me financially. It was all legal, Paul. That he made me break a fish tank. Go away, Paul. You don't want to be seen with me." Paul left, looking heartbroken and scared. Daniel watched him go. That door was closed forever. One cold, rainy night, Leo gave him a different job. "Drive this package to the address on the paper. Don't open it. Don't be late. Don't get stopped." It was a small, locked metal briefcase. It felt heavy. Daniel didn't want to know what was inside. He drove through the rain-slicked streets to a fancy downtown apartment building. He gave the case to a doorman who nodded silently. As he turned to leave, the elevator doors opened, and Alina Volkov stepped out. She was wearing a dark coat, her hair down. She looked like any other wealthy, beautiful woman leaving her lover's apartment late at night. Their eyes met. She stopped. He froze. Mark was beside her, and his hand went inside his jacket. A warning. Alina studied Daniel. She saw the worn jacket, the exhaustion in his eyes, the rain on his shoulders. He saw no pity in her gaze, just a quiet, deep understanding. She gave the slightest, almost imperceptible nod. Not a friendship, not a forgiveness. It was an acknowledgement, a recognition that the lesson had been learned and he was now part of the ecosystem he had once disdained. Then she walked past him, into the waiting car without a word. That nod haunted him. It was worse than hatred. It meant she saw him clearly, and what she saw was exactly what he had become, a tool, an owned thing. He wanted to rage. He wanted to burn it all down, but he had nowhere to go, so he kept working. The big test came a month later. Leo called him into a back room of a social club that Volkov owned. Dmitri was there, sitting at a desk, looking over papers. His presence filled the small room. "Sterling," Dmitri said, not looking up. "Leo says you are competent, quiet, you follow orders." Daniel said nothing. He just stood there. "I have a job that requires a brain, not just a strong back," Dmitri continued. He slid a file across the desk. "A city councilman is voting against a zoning change we need. He is morally flexible, but he is being pressured by his donors. His weakness is his son. The boy has a gambling debt, a large one. To a bookie who does not work for me, I want you to resolve it." Daniel opened the file. There were photos of the councilman, his son, bank statements. The debt was $80,000. "Resolve it how?" Daniel asked carefully. "Buy the debt," Dmitri said simply. "The bookie is a greedy little weasel named Finn. He will sell it for 50 cents on the dollar. You will negotiate. You will use the money in that envelope." He tapped a thick envelope on the desk. "Then you will own the boy's debt, and you will go to the councilman and explain that his vote needs to change, and that his debt is now forgiven." Daniel's mind, rusty from disuse, started turning. This was strategy, leverage. This was what he was good at. And if the councilman goes to the police? Dmitri finally looked up, a ghost of a smile on his lips. "He won't, because you will also give him these." He slid another envelope. Inside were photos of the councilman with a woman who was not his wife. "He is a man who values his image. He will understand the new balance." Daniel took the envelopes. This was different from breaking glass. This was cold, calculated manipulation. It was business. Dirty business, but business nonetheless. "And why me?" Daniel couldn't help but ask. "Because you speak his language. You know how these respectable men think. You used to be one. And," Dmitri added, his eyes turning cold again, "because I want to see if the hammer can also be a scalpel. Do not fail." Finding Finn the bookie was easy. He worked out of a dusty little office above a bar. Daniel walked in, dressed in his cheap clothes, but he carried himself differently now. He carried Volkov's authority. "I'm here to buy the Thompson debt," Daniel said, throwing the envelope of cash on Finn's desk. Finn, a skinny man with slicked-back hair, laughed. Why would I sell? The kid's good for it. His daddy's a councilman. Daniel leaned on the desk. It was the same move he used to use on nervous junior executives. His daddy is about to lose an election because of a scandal. Then the kid has no money. You'll get nothing. I'm offering you $40,000 now. Cash. No collection hassles. Or you can wait and maybe get paid in IOUs and tears. Finn eyed the money. Greed won. 50. 45. Final offer. Daniel's voice was ice. He wasn't Daniel the debtor anymore. He was Daniel the negotiator, the tool with a brain. They settled on 47. Daniel walked out with the signed paperwork. He felt a strange, dark thrill. He had done it. He had used his skills, not his muscles. Next was the councilman. Daniel met him in a park like two old friends. He didn't threaten. He just laid it out calmly, showing the debt papers and the incriminating photos. Mr. Volkov would like your support on the zoning vote. It would mean a lot to him, enough to make all these problems disappear. The councilman, a man named Higgins, turned pale, then red with anger. This is blackmail. It's a mutual understanding, Daniel corrected, his voice quiet. You help our business. We help your family. It's just business, councilman. Think of your son. Think of your wife. He saw the exact moment Higgins broke. It was the same look Daniel had seen on the faces of executives he had acquired. Defeat. Resignation. The vote passed. Dmitri got his zoning change. That evening, Daniel was summoned back to the social club. Dmitri poured 2 glasses of expensive whiskey, pushing one toward Daniel. A toast, Dmitri said, to useful tools. Daniel drank. The whiskey burned, but it was smooth, like power. You did well, Dmitri said. The councilman is now a friend. You saved us time, money, and noise. This is the value I saw in you. For the first time since his fall, Daniel felt a flicker of something. Not pride, not happiness, but purpose. A dark, twisted purpose. You will do more of this, Dmitri said. You have a new apartment, better clothes, a salary, not your old salary, but a good one. You are no longer on the street. You are in the office. It was a promotion, from hammer to scalpel, from foot soldier to lieutenant. Daniel moved into a nicer 1-bedroom apartment. He bought better suits, though not as fine as his old ones. He had an expense account. He started handling more of Dmitri's legitimate business fronts, the import company, the nightclubs, the real estate holdings. He found he was good at it. He could launder money through complex deals, bribe officials with subtlety, and negotiate with a cold efficiency that impressed even Leo. He was becoming valuable, and with value came a sliver of respect and a larger sliver of fear from others. He saw Alina occasionally at events he was now required to attend for work. They never spoke. But once, at a charity auction for the very museum where his downfall had been displayed, their paths crossed at the refreshment table. She looked radiant in a dark green dress. He was in a suit, holding a bidding paddle for a piece of art Dmitri wanted. You look different, she said softly, not looking at him as she picked up a glass of champagne. So do you, he replied. He meant it. She no longer looked like the scared maid. She looked like a queen. Not working the party tonight. A faint smile. Not this one. My husband prefers I am seen as a guest now. Since the incident, my undercover days are over. My cage is just more comfortable now. There was no malice in her words, just a statement of fact. I'm sorry, Daniel said again, the words automatic now. I know, she said. She finally looked at him. Her eyes were deep, knowing. But sorry doesn't change the past. It only changes what comes next. You chose what came next for you. She glanced across the room at Dmitri, who was watching them with an unreadable expression. Be careful, Daniel. The higher you climb here, the farther there is to fall. She walked away, leaving him with a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Daniel threw himself into the work. He made Volkov millions. He expanded the empire. He became Dmitri's right-hand man for the clean operations. He had money again, respect of a kind, power of a dark variety, but he never forgot he was owned. The The shadow of the slap, of the broken fish tank, of Alina's nod, was always there. One night, a year after his fall, Dimitri called him to the manor on Blackthorn Lane. Not the office, the home. Alina was absent. They sat in Dimitri's study, a room of dark wood and old books. "There is a problem," Dimitri said, sipping a glass of vodka. "A rival from out of town. He is moving in on our territory. He is violent, unpredictable. He does not understand our balance. He needs to be removed." Daniel waited. This sounded like a job for Leo and his men, not for him. "This man has a weakness. He is in love with his money. He keeps it in a private, off-the-books bank in Switzerland. The codes, the access, are in a safe in his home here. I want those codes. I want you to get them." Daniel blinked. "Me, I'm not a thief." "You are a strategist," Dimitri said. "Figure it out. Use your brain. This is not a job for a hammer. This is a job for a locksmith. Get the codes. Then we will drain his accounts and he will have no money to pay his soldiers. They will leave. Problem solved without a messy war." Dimitri slid a file across the desk. It contained blueprints of a mansion, schedules of guards, security system details. "You have 1 week." Daniel took the file. This was another test, the biggest one yet. If he succeeded, his place would be secure, his value undeniable. If he failed, he didn't want to think about it. He spent days studying the plans. The security was good, but not impossible. The safe was a high-end model. He would need a specialist to crack it. He knew a guy from his old tech days who dabbled in gray hat hacking and physical security. A man named Felix who would do anything for money. It was a risk, bringing in an outsider, but he had no choice. He met Felix in a noisy internet cafe. Felix, a skinny guy with glasses, listened, his eyes wide. "You want me to break into that house? For those people? Are you insane, Daniel?" 50,000 cash. "Up front," Daniel said, sliding a duffel bag under the table. Felix peeked inside. He swallowed. 100. 75. And a clean passport to get you out of the country after. Take it or leave it. Felix took it. The break-in was set for 2 nights later. Daniel's heart pounded as he drove Felix to a spot near the mansion. He would wait in the car as a lookout, a burner phone in his hand connected to Felix's earpiece. "Going in," Felix whispered. Daniel waited, every second feeling like an hour. He heard faint sounds through the phone, the snick of lockpicks, the soft beep of a bypassed alarm, Felix's nervous breathing. Then a grunt, a thud, a shout. "Felix, Felix," Daniel hissed into the phone. A new voice came on, rough and angry. "Who is this? You're dead. You're both dead." The line went dead. Daniel froze in panic. They were caught. Felix was caught, and they would trace it back to him, back to Volkov. He had 2 choices: run or report the failure to Dimitri. Running was tempting, but Volkov's reach was long. Mark had once told him, "We find everyone eventually." With a sinking heart, Daniel started the car and drove straight to the manor. He had to tell Dimitri before the rival did. He was brought into the study, where Dimitri was playing chess by himself. Daniel, his face white, explained what happened in a rush. Dimitri listened in silence. When Daniel finished, Dimitri moved a chess piece. "The knight is sacrificed to protect the king," he said calmly. Then he looked up. "You used an outside tool. The tool broke. Now the tool must be discarded before it cuts us." "What do we do?" Daniel asked. "We do nothing," Dimitri said. "You will go home, you will wait, the rival will call. He will try to use Felix to get to me. He will think he has leverage. And then," Dimitri smiled, "then he will learn that some levers are connected to bombs. Go home, Daniel, and do not answer your phone unless it is from me." Daniel spent a sleepless night in his apartment, expecting police or rival gangsters to kick his door down at any moment. The call came to Dimitri, as predicted. The rival, a man named Morty, was gloating. He had Felix. He had the story. He wanted $1 million and a chunk of territory, or he would go to the police with the hacker and the story of Volkov's failed robbery. Dimitri agreed to a meeting, to hand over the money, a warehouse, midnight. Daniel was ordered to come to drive the car. He was terrified. This was a war and he had started it. At the warehouse, it was dark. Dmitri got out of the car, a briefcase in hand. Daniel waited, engine running. He saw Morty step out of the shadows with 2 bodyguards. Felix was with them, bruised and terrified. He saw Dmitri talk. He saw Morty laugh. Then Dmitri raised his hand, a signal. From the rafters above, 2 silent figures dropped. Leo and Mark. There was no loud gunfire, just soft sounds from silenced pistols. Morty's bodyguards fell. Morty turned to run, and Leo shot him twice in the back. Felix stood, shaking his hands up. Dmitri walked over to the hacker. He said something Daniel couldn't hear. Then he nodded to Mark. Daniel closed his eyes. He heard one morph sound. When he opened them, Felix was on the ground too. Dmitri walked back to the car, calm as if he'd taken out the trash. He got in. Drive. Daniel drove, his hands slick on the wheel. Your mistake cost a life, Dmitri said quietly. 2, if you count the tool you brought in, but you came to me immediately. You did not run. That shows loyalty. And you have learned a lesson. In our business, we use our own tools. We do not rent them. Daniel said nothing. He felt sick. Felix was dead because of him. The debt is paid, Dmitri said finally as they neared the manor. The problem is solved. Your position is unchanged. But remember this night, Daniel, the cost of failure and the price of loyalty. Daniel dropped Dmitri off and went home. He poured a large drink. He stared at his hands. They were clean, but they were covered in blood now all the same. He had wanted power again. He had wanted a place. Now he had it. He was Dmitri Volkov's scalpel, his strategist, his right-hand man. He was deep inside the golden cage. And he knew, looking out his window at the city he once ruled in the light, that he would never get out. Alina's warning echoed in his mind. The higher you climb here, the farther there is to fall. He had climbed, and he was so very afraid of the fall. Thank you for watching. Did this revenge story satisfy you? Comment below with where you're watching from, and tell us, what would you have done if you were Daniel? Subscribe for more tailies, where the powerful get what they deserve.